Hey, what's up? It's Jeff again, and I've got Kathleen back with me. And wow, just got done with Master Chat, and it was flying. It was fast. I think everything we were hoping it was going to be with this topic. A lot of great conversations, a lot of offshoot conversations going on into quite a bit of depth and stuff. Kathleen, how you feeling right now after the chat?
Completely overwhelmed. There were so many interesting things going on and
hmm
side conversations that I wanted to participate in, but then I see something else that I wanted to comment on. So I think I'll have to go back later and reread everything.
Yeah, it's that's sort of one of the things we found. Most of our moderators, they're like, yes, I thought I was going, from 8 to 9 Eastern, and I ended up going to like 11:30 because we did the recap, and then I just kept having to talk with people and stuff. I've got a couple, butts that I've marked, and I have like a different tabs so I can go back and interact and chat with people. So, um, yeah, it was interesting. It was a good chat though. Went well. Um, Where am I at? Sorry, I had a message. Chad was asking me something. I thought I did something wrong, but I think I'm okay now. So were there any answers that came about that were surprising to you or unexpected?
I was pleasantly surprised with how many people actually said
Was
that they
I think
feel
everything we were hoping.
respected and they feel
Mm-hmm.
like they're revered.
Yeah, I did see some of that. I was happy to see some of that
I
for
was
sure.
thrilled to see some of that because from the educators that I talk to, I don't think that's the common um,
Yeah.
way of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I did like that, and I agree with. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that they felt revered and respected in their classroom and in their building, but not necessarily in greater
Not
society.
necessarily, yeah, in the world. Okay, yeah,
And
sure.
I was like, yes, that I feel that.
Kathleen, can you adjust your camera up just a little bit? We're kind of cutting your eyes off.
Oh,
Hey, there you are.
yeah.
Sorry, it's just like yeah, it's just like a talking mouth.
Oh, okay.
Just for a minute there, it's good. No, you're fine. No, I saw that too, and I was happy to see that some people at least felt that way. At least some of the classroom culture and the building culture is there and stuff. But it's the outside, the rest of it that's
Right.
the other part. So, I want to look in here. So I'm gonna throw a few at you, like so. I took some screenshots of different answers and stuff, just so I'll bring up a question, talk about some of the answers that we saw, and maybe get your thoughts on some of them, and maybe some of the ones that I didn't catch that you did. So question one was, how would you describe the dialogue or narrative surrounding the teaching profession in the United States currently? What stories contribute to the narrative? So some of the ones that came in are Tiffany Yad said, while I know that there is an air of negativity in some circles about education, I find that those circles just have louder voices. I am more often uplifted and inspired by the positivity, the appreciation, and the hope that I see in conversations I have with non-educators. Chad,
Response.
yeah, that's a great response. Chad Yashrowski said, it was just funny that I had both Chad and Tiff that like tweeted at
Mhm.
the same time, so I captured them both in one screenshot. He said Chad actually it's sort of the outside. It doesn't tend to be super positive one outside of educational circles. Teachers can be one of the most disrespected professions, both in plain terms as well as from a policy standpoint. Luckily, we have some awesome PLNs like Master Chat to lift us up. So, just in our, those are two like from the Teach Better team that are very different conversations outside. I have conversations with people who know that I'm in the education world very different depending on who it is that I'm talking to, and some that get it and love it, and some who I have to puff my chest and go to battle with. So it's an interesting that they both had kind of opposite one there. You said I think people know the importance of education, but don't respect institutions of education or educators enough. People will pay an extra 100,000 for a house in a neighborhood with good schools, but fight higher taxes to raise teacher salaries equals mixed messages. Oh, that's a really good point. That I've always that's all. It's interesting because it's always confused me. People not voting for levies and stuff has always confused me because typically it's like a lot of the response is, hey, this is for our schools. And they're like, well, I don't have any kids in schools anymore.
Right.
And they don't understand that, yeah, but if the school doesn't do well, no one new's coming to town.
Right.
And when no one new comes to town, the town stops growing. Guess what? Businesses leave because they go under. So that means no businesses are coming, which means your property value for that house you paid a lot for is going to plummet. Mm-hmm. So like it just doesn't make any sense to me. And it is that mixed message. Yeah, they'll pay. Like they know that one of the reasons that new house they're looking at is higher priced is because of the school system, but then they won't support the things either. That's an interesting vantage point. Very confusing. Mm-hmm. So Marty Hoover said, I think teens need to do a better job of painting an accurate picture of life in the classroom without being a martyr. She uses hashtag share the positive to tell her classroom story. Let's see. Matthew Joseph said, I would describe it as uninformed for those not in the profession because the description of amazing educators is not always accurate. And stories from in the field is about dedication and drive to educate you people. That's what he said. So, Craig Shapiro said, I think this is partially dependent on your situation and where you live. While many may think a dialogue is negative, we help create our own talking points by being positive, passionate, and loving our field. I'm sorry, I'm getting Chad. I think Chad thought that he was supposed to go live tonight, so he's like, "Am I going live with you?" Sorry, I'm texting Chad live. So I hope if Chad's watching, I'm telling him right now that we're on. Isn't this a great live video right now? There. Anyway, so yeah, I do think just so. Craig brings up that it's large or partially dependent on your situation and where you live, and I think that's obvious. I mean, I think if you have a town that has a large majority of the population are the same folks that went through that town's school system, and that was a negative experience, a positive experience, drastically affects how they look at the schools currently. Joe Sanfilippo, if you don't know Joe Sanfilippo from he's an awesome superintendent out in Wisconsin, he talks so much about the importance of school districts sharing their story and sharing it out and sharing what they're doing, because if you don't tell your own story, people will make up the story for you. And it's going to be based on the experiences they had 30, 40 years ago, potentially, which is not the same experience that's going on in schools right now. So it's really important. And I saw a general theme, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, a general theme in all through the chat tonight that always kept coming back around to, we have to share our stories.
Yes.
We've got to share our stories. We've got to let people know what's going on. I agree, and it
would bubble to the surface.
Yeah, it really is. We have to get out. And I saw someone, I can't remember who it is, but who said, that it really bothers her and she has a hard time with people who comment negatively on the profession that aren't in the profession. Mm-hmm. And I believe that those people that are not in a profession are the ones who we most have to go out and tell a story to. Mm-hmm. Because they're the ones, if we can change their perspective and the stories they tell about the profession, that'll change all the other people that also aren't in the profession. And get that when you change the mindset of those that are outside of it, they then can help change the mindset of other folks outside of there. So I think it's really important, and that all comes from sharing the story, getting out there. So any answers from that one that jumped out, or was it that the general feel, or?
I agree, and I'm glad that it seemed like, and of course, those of us who are on Twitter, on Mastery Chat, are those that want to share our story. Yeah. But maybe we can encourage our colleagues to do the same and kind of spread that message.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. So let's talk about, so question 2 is, how does that narrative impact the recruitment of highly motivated and highly qualified future teachers? Any thoughts on the general answers you saw from that? Anything surprising? You took a deep breath. That's interesting now.
I'm trying. It's not, because I'm trying to process and go back to question 2 in my brain.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, wasn't it?
It was. I don't think I was as surprised by that one, and I don't think people clung to that question as much as some of the other questions, because that one kind of connected to the first question more, where people were saying, maybe it wasn't as good of a question as the others, and that obviously if there's a negative narrative, then it's going to impact teacher recruitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the better question came later when it was, what can we do
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
improve this narrative, as well as just in general to recruit future teachers.
Mm-hmm. Tammy, who's down in Mexico, she's always in our chat. Tammy's been in there for as long as I can remember. She says she's out in Mexico. She says, I know you weren't aware of that, but now you are. I was aware of that, Tammy. But and our families definitely respect us. I think it is because 50% of our teachers come from abroad outside of Mexico, and parents respect that. I'd be interested to know why you feel that parents respect that they're coming from outside of Mexico. That's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
She says, however, I think there's a lot of negativity around the public education here. The public schools are overcrowded and underfunded, and it seems that there's not general trust or respect towards educators. Susan chimed in with, this was a truly great chat, so kudos. If you get Susan's approval, that's good. She's been in our master chat PLN for a long time.
I've seen her in.
So I'm just looking more. So, a lot of people went to the same similar thing on question 2 of, well, if we're not telling our story, they're not going to understand it. Mm-hmm. Sean Wiggs said the problem with the narrative is that it's extremely negative, especially the money. What concerns me more is the internal narrative that you either love money or love kids. That's not true. You can love kids and need a good living wage. And that's the thing too, is a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but aren't you in it for the passion of helping kids and stuff? And so why do you need so much money? And my thing is always like, yeah, but doesn't a professional basketball player love playing basketball? He'd most likely do it for whatever the minimum he could survive on his life on, if that was his choice. So why do we pay them millions and millions and millions, right? So teachers can want that too. And I don't think teachers are out there wanting millions, right? They just want, a little bit more. It's not even that much more. It's just a little bit more. But I think that is a common thing. I think some teachers, and I'm glad that in recent years, I think it's starting to be broken down, because you're starting to see some more groups stand up and go fight for this. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of teachers worry that people are going to think that, well, if I'm always worried about money, they're going to think I'm greedy for money and that I'm not really here because I love it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the other way around. It's, hey, we're trying to fight for better wages so that I can stay here and keep trying, right? And keep pushing towards, so I can focus on the mission that I really want to be, which is really being good in my classroom, the best I can be for my students, rather than can I pay my gas bill next month?
And to recruit the best and the brightest, which is need in education.
Exactly. You got people that are potentially fantastic teachers that decide to go this way or that way because it's just a little bit more, and that part of their life is going to be easier than the financial side. Yeah, it's a tough one. That's I'm just looking through some more of these questions too. Go down. I might just pop us maybe we'll pop the question 3. Did I do a lot? Yeah, here we go. Let's do 3. So 3 was many other. This was the good one. Yeah. So many other countries revere teachers in a way that American teachers can only dream of. Why do you think teaching is such a highly respected career in the other regions? Why not in the United States? Did you get the answers for this one?
No, I don't think anybody knows. I think it was. There was a mix with that one. There was some pushback, I felt like, with that people felt it wasn't uncommon that in most countries teachers were not
okay respected.
And then I did see the response, the money came up again.
Mm-hmm.
And then the culture, just the culture of the society, which is something that we can't change overnight. So I think I'm just as frustrated on that one as I was before I asked it.
Yeah. So Tiffany Ott had a take. She said, for a variety of reasons, education in the U.S. was considered a stepping stone or a way station to other careers. She said it was almost exclusively a career for women who didn't really have other options, and that legacy has had a lasting impact in how we see teaching. And I think that's right, for sure. I'm looking at so Chad. I don't know why Chad and Tiff were like tweeting at the exact same time, so I was getting them both in the same shot. If Chad said this is a tough one, I think it has a lot to do with the history of the profession as well. If you look at the policy and how one room school teachers were treated, and that has continued a policy where teachers aren't respected like doctors and lawyers who have just always been respected. Um, you said, I wonder if because education in the U.S. is free and mandated, as it should be, it loses a level of respect. In places where education hasn't always been a right, school is viewed as an opportunity rather than an obligation. How do we get our students to see school as an opportunity? Yeah, that's an interesting take on it because, yeah, there's a lot. There are other countries where probably, I still today, but a lot of definitely in the past where not everyone got to go to school, right?
Yep.
So going was a big deal. I kind of look at that similar to like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, higher education, college was that lot. Like when my dad went to college, like he was one of very few that actually went that route in his era. A lot of other people went, to the factories and
Right.
things like that, especially where I'm from, the Youngstown area in Ohio. So that was what you did. You went to Steel or to GM or something. My dad went different routes. So it was a different thing. Now it's like, by the time I graduated, that's just what you were supposed to do. Like you basically went, if you didn't get the golden ticket of going to GM at the time, you either went into the military or you were supposed to go to college. Like, but everyone was supposed to, but it was an opportunity that everyone at least had the shot of doing. It was available and stuff. So it's interesting in countries that I don't know, that might be the way. I want to see what other people say. So Jenny Stadmiller says, everyone thinks they can do it. I know how to read, so I can teach someone to read. Anyone who's tried it quickly learns that that's not the case. But she said, I wish everyone would have to play teacher for the day, especially politicians. I think that would be really great.
Yeah.
Sean Wigg says many other countries respect teaching because they understand the opportunities education can provide. Also, it's an eternal retirement system for families. Well-educated kids can do well enough to care for their elderly. It's like a self-funded long-term care policy. That's interesting. That's interesting. But that can be true here too. But I think, I don't know if they just place, but I don't know. They don't like. That's the problem. Is like that's could be true here in a sense, but it's not teachers. It's other things, right? So that's going back to where the career isn't the right. You want your kids to go do something else that's not teaching. So how do we get them to think that teaching is the job they can go and have that long-term effect? So. I think maybe Jennifer Manley was one of the ones that mentioned, she said the easy answer is money. The more complex answer is also money. In our country, higher salary professions count more. Teachers are underpaid, sure, but there's also no real monetary incentive to be a great teacher, so it doesn't fit within the U.S. value structure. What do you think of that one?
Oh, that's so loaded.
That's why I asked you about it. So I mean, is there a? She says, there's no real monetary incentive to be a great teacher. So like,
there's not, but that's so hard because how do you determine what a great teacher is? Some schools tried that,
yeah, and
test scores equals pay incentives, and
but then
not fair because
then we're focused on that versus it's just things like that. So Jen's here. Jen, it was a great point. We're like stuck thinking through it and what it is. So I think like, I guess the question is, why is it like, should there be, or could there be, or would it be worse to have the monetary incentive to do better? And again, like you said, like, how do you measure that? Like, what do you put that on? So then, because then you get into that, like, are you just now turning kids into the same as like, number of cars through the drive-through at a restaurant, right? When you're trying to tally up, like, because your goals are based on how fast can you get cars through to get more tickets, or how many bikes can you wrench at the shop to get people turnover and stuff? Is that how we should be looking? Is that the incentive, or what is that? Interesting.
As someone who works really hard as a teacher, I think it would be nice to have a financial incentive.
Sure.
But I don't know of a way in which that could be.
Yeah, it's I think I think you run into like what's that policy look like, and who makes that decision, and has that changed is that set by the state, by the federal level, at the district level, at the building level? And that's an interesting thought. So, um, and Jen responded there with, yes, that's the issue. Our country values getting paid. It does. Absolutely. I'd be interested in, Jen, if you think that there should be a monetary, and if so, like how you would see that. Because I think it'd be interesting to see, but I don't know how that would be. Yeah, I don't know. She says, I don't think there's a best answer for how to incentivize. Yeah, I think that's the case. I think we're on the same page there. Um, I agree with that. So our country equates professional value to money. Absolutely. I think that's spot on. And it shouldn't, but it does. So, um, so that that's a tough, this whole topic, everything comes back to like, it's tough when there's so much value placed on what you make, and teachers aren't in the higher level of that, right? So when new young folks are looking at their professions, they're not looking that direction. Um, and that's probably, so it comes back to, how do we make that better? Pay teachers more, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that could solve.
There are
a lot of things that could solve. So anyway, so I love that Jen followed up with, I'm happy getting paid and making a difference. I love that. And that's the thing, like that to me, like, so how do you quantify that? Like, that's the level, like that to me is like, that should be the rewarded with that. Hey, you're a great teacher then. Like you should make more now. So how do we judge that? So anyway, it's a tough topic. This was a great topic. I'm going to go on the 4 here real quick. Actually, I want to do something real quick. I want you to help me with something. So I had a teacher reach out to me during the chat, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't. She messaged me privately, but she said, Jeff, I just saw your post about teachers feeling undervalued. Literally, that is exactly how I am feeling. I feel like I'm going bonkers. I love my classroom, my students, and the teachers I work with, but I feel, like you said, undervalued. So I ask, how do you or we in the field make ourselves feel better?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Participate in Mastery Chat.
Well, so she was in there, and she was positive and things like that. So like, yeah, I think what you're saying is, do you want to elaborate on that, or before? I don't want to keep talking. I'm on the same path as what you just said in my mind, but
I think just connecting with other teachers that can echo your passion and your conviction and your positivity is the best we've got if you're in a situation in which the outside culture surrounding you wherever you are, or in a greater national avenue, just is not giving you a positivity, not making you feel valued.
I think I think you have to really focus on putting the right things in your ears or in your viewpoint, in the sense of keeping yourself surrounded by positivity around it. I think I'm probably going to tell her to make sure that she's reflecting on the positive impact she's having every day. Paying attention to the little, like celebrating all those little wins, whether even if it's just that one kid you got to smile today that maybe didn't smile yesterday, like the littlest things that teachers have the ability to do on a daily basis, that I think sometimes teachers it just becomes part of your day, that you don't and don't necessarily take the time to sit back and realize what you do for those kids every single day, even when maybe it doesn't feel that way. So yeah, I'm going to dive into that. I wanted to wait until afterwards because I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that, and then I'll get back in with her and stuff. And hopefully, she's definitely having a tough time. So yeah, I think participate in Master Chat, right, and all the other. I mean, there's hundreds of just awesome chats all the time throughout the week that can give you those positive people there. So, so let me ask: was there anything we've kind of talked a lot? I've thrown a lot at you already, but anything else? Anything that really like maybe surprised you? We kind of talked about some of the different ones, but anything that you're like, wow, I didn't see that thought come in or that viewpoint come in.
Well, one thing that I should have seen coming, but for some reason didn't, is the negativity in the news media, not social media, but in publications.
Yeah.
News media. And maybe I blocked that because I'm a journalism teacher and I don't want to think news bad. But it's true that in today's society, again, it's a cultural thing. Bad news sells, and
Hmm.
controversy sells.
Yeah.
And so when the schools are being reported on, more often than not, it's negative. Not
Yep.
always.
But
Sometimes it's positive.
yeah.
But I think, not to say, oh, blaming the news,
Hmm.
but there's definitely a negative tone to a lot of what's out there, not just about education, but about
Sure. In general, yeah,
everything.
yeah, sure. I've noticed that a lot of times, like here's the good things that went on as like this little teeny segment
Right.
of
Like
the
they
of
save
the show, and it's like,
for it.
yeah, like it's such a small thing, and like on on like the TV news, it's like here's all this negative crap that happened, and oh, here's the good stuff. Three little
Right.
things, real quick. We're not even tell you the full story, just a couple images, and it's great that they show that, but they don't. Yeah, they're not showing the everyday stuff, which is I think goes back to what a lot of what we saw is that it's up to everyone in the world of education to be sharing that stuff out.
Mhm.
And we have chats that get deep into issues and arguing things out and stuff like that, and that's good amongst people that are in the industry. But when we're going to the outside world, it's like we have to share the amazing things that are going on. I think it's so important for schools and districts and teachers in general just to share out to their local community about what's happening inside their school
Mhm.
and seeing the impact that's been had. But then taking that, now we have the ability to share it anywhere in the world. So I really think it constantly comes back to doing that. And it's not something that's going to happen quickly, right? We've got to like
Right.
change the narrative and continue to change it for, I mean, years and years to come to try and make that change happen on a larger scale, I think. So, what was question four? Question four. Oh, so that was good. Yeah. So what are three or more groups that
Right.
influence?
Just kind of talked about that.
Any of these surprise you other than that one that you should have seen coming, but you didn't?
No, that was the only one that the rest of them were pretty much what I expected: parents, students, educators,
Yeah, and then it was, list an order of
stakeholders.
influence in order of the influence. Sean Wig actually said you only need one, teachers. If they hate it and only talk about the negative aspects, it's the most unattractive language for potential educators.
Yeah.
If practitioners are negative, people will steer clear. Um, Michael, oh, I'm going to butcher your last name, Michael Gianfrancesco. I think I said it correct. He said, I think politicians have a huge influence on how education is perceived. Next would be celebrities, for better or worse. And then I think educational leaders, including heads of teacher unions and the Teacher of the Year winners, help support education as well. Phil Strong says the media who craft or share the stories, the governments who establish regulations, communities who the individual school educates. Parents, community leaders, parents prior, teachers are our own profession. Legit, we are our own worst enemy in many occasions. That was Dr. Adam Drummond. Number one, educators. A lot of the perception issues are self-inflicted. Number two, politicians. Number three, media focus. That's Todd Greenberg. Media, government, uh, individuals in schools who share a strong voice, legislators, chamber of commerce, realtors, and then probably the school themselves. Realtors is an interesting one. We talked about the
Mhm.
house earlier. I think
Yeah.
is interesting there. I've got some other comments here that I haven't been paying attention to. Tammy says, I think going back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, is I think the great teacher is the one who creates a positive classroom climate, one in which there is respect between students and teachers, where students are highly motivated to work hard to learn and grow. How do we measure this? I'm not entirely sure, but I would assume an environment like this would result in more student success, fewer behavior issues, more unity and strong community in general. And those would be leading indicators. And all of that stuff, I'm with Tammy on that, because all of that stuff, and you have a classroom like that, those students are more likely to talk positive when they go home. They're more likely to be excited about school, which is going to change the narrative, even if it might be slowly, of the parents at home or the stakeholders at home and the people that they're with. So, Don Epps, you have to find ways to make your story the story everyone wants to hear. If anybody who's watching or paying attention does not follow Don in his morning motivation stories, you have to follow Don, because he does this every single day. I was watching him today, and I was late to a call that I was supposed to be on because I was watching Don run around a school as Hulk Hogan, and it was just absolutely awesome. But they push so hard in his school to share their story constantly every single day, and they get everyone involved. That the students want to share their story, the community, and it's a great example. So shout out to Don there. But you said educators, politicians, parents, students. That's the order, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I mean, I do think it absolutely starts. I think everything we talk about, it starts with educators. I do think, politicians really have to lead a charge just because of the platforms they have and the voices they have, and then media as well. So,
and because they control the money.
And because they control the money, yes, absolutely. Which is why they need to be influenced. They need, we have to influence them. I'm looking through, a lot of them are all just a lot of the same stuff. Just parents, teachers, different variety of switching between 1, 2, and 3 there.
Yeah.
Run and Rant Home. He said this narrative should be shaped by the students, the teachers, the parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's the order that it should be. So interesting. So I want to just touch on one more question because I want to keep you forever tonight. So do we want to talk about, of the groups who, question 5 was other groups who are influence education, which do we as educators have the power to impact, or we can look at some answers to the commitments that people made to help positively change it, or what can we do to inspire more young? Which one do you want to tackle? Which one of those?
Let's do the commitments.
The commitments. Okay, good. The commitments were fun. I probably didn't take nearly as many screenshots because that's further. I always slack off as I get further in. Let's see here. Of course I didn't. Let me see if I have any. Come on, Jeff. I did a lot of 5. I'm not going to lie. So Phil Strong said we have to share what we are doing. That's what we've been talking about. We need to talk about the things we're doing in the classroom. We can talk about the things that we want and need, like supplies and pay, but that cannot be the primary message we push out. We need to communicate that our job is about making change. And that's a really good point. So one thing that I've noticed is that people who already have a negative viewpoint, if we complain, it makes that negative viewpoint worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, we can't complain. We have to educate what's going on. And then to the point where they go, I don't think teachers are paid enough. Because if you just say, hey, I'm not paid enough, they're going to go, yeah, I'm not paid enough either. All right. Right. And you have your summer off, right? Because I don't understand. So that's how I'm going to reply, versus just me learning about it, which is obviously a longer game. Right. But I think that's a good point, because if we're negative about the negativity that you deal with in education, then they're just going to see that in a negative light because they already have those lenses on. So,
and I liked also that I saw some people mentioning what we had talked about prior to the chat about talking positively about the career of education and teaching to your students.
Yes. Yeah. I saw a bunch of that. Yes. A lot of that. That's very important, because I've met so many educators who will tell you that the reason they got an education is because of a teacher. I'm willing to bet there's a whole bunch of people who didn't get an education because of a teacher as well, right? Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of other reasons and other influences, but so many are inspired by a teacher somewhere in their life that leads them down that path. That it's got to be there, and that's why it all comes back to just sharing the stories and everything, and sharing the positivity. Katie Alvarez said, I'm a huge proponent of making student teaching a high school elective. I am committed to this. I've mentored 2 high school students. One is going to college to be a teacher, and another is a school counselor now. I think it really helps in garnering an authentic interest in the career pathway. So I'm curious, Katie, is that something you have in place at your school? It sounds like maybe, which is pretty cool.
Well, she responds, we have Virginia Teachers for Tomorrow in Virginia.
Okay.
Awesome, where they actually have a curriculum for them to learn about education, and then they don't do actual student teaching, but they do a practicum type experience in a classroom. And
when does that start at?
It can start their junior year of high school. They can do it junior year and senior year.
Gotcha.
And I believe most, not all, but most of the schools offer it as dual enrollment credit, so they can get college credit for it.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, Katie says they do have it. Katie, is that just in your school, your district, or is that a state thing? Or I'd be curious to know whether that's a state or that. Of course, I can't remember exactly what state Katie's in, so that's not going to help me. So remind me of that too, Katie. Let's see if I got any more of these 6. So Adam Drummond said, we need to use using social media to leverage the great work of fellow educators. He wants to send his son's teachers a thank you note. I think that's a big piece when
That.
I've seen that. I've tried, really hard with my son's teachers, like just letting them know that I appreciate the little things they do. And like it's the littlest thing, but I just see it in their face. They're just like, oh, like I needed that
Yes.
because I haven't got that all day, right? Like, so she said she treats it just like student teaching. It's in their district. She's in Wyoming. That's right. So out in Wyoming. So that's a district thing. That'd be an interesting thing to see. But yours, Kathleen, is statewide,
I believe
right?
so. Not in all schools, but it's
Okay.
called Virginia Teachers for Tomorrow, and it is different pockets of it around the state.
So so maybe it's elective for the school too. They
Yes.
can choose. So
Yes.
here's Tammy on another. What's Tammy got? I know I always bring up Seesaw, but here I go again. Not only do my students share their work through Seesaw, I always have my TA videos, my lessons and activities with the students. I think the transparency gives them a window into otherwise would not have. They get to see the great things we do, how hard we work, make things huge. Yeah, like I agree too. Just bringing them in. It all comes back. It's all coming back. Every single thing we're going through comes back to just sharing that story out and changing the narrative. And I keep going back. I constantly think about Joe Sanfilippo. I don't know if you've ever seen Joe speak.
I have actually. I think
So
I saw him at FETC maybe.
Okay, I just saw him in June out at Summer Spark in Wisconsin. It's the first time I saw him speak. I've been connected to him for a while, but it's the first time I had him speak. He was on our podcast. It was awesome. So I knew it'd be good. But one, he just does a great job at it. But his message is so it's this. I mean, it's all about how they change the narrative in that school, in their community, and how you need to do that. And it's so important now. We have all the tools to do it. So like we have what we need right now to do this, to try and fix this problem. Now it's a matter of everyone doing that and coming together on it. So Don Ebb says, I take our positive school stories to the media and they have been more than willing to run with them. I wholeheartedly believe all media, especially local media, is looking for the good stories. We just have to help them find it. And he says, make your Frosty moments. If you've never talked with Don to hear about the Frosty story, you need to. I can't remember what episode it is. Don was on the podcast and shared it, but it's a great story about the Frosty moment. So, but again, goes back to you gotta share that story out. So, I'll look at one. I have like three more things here, and then we're good. So, Todd Greenberg said, "Let go of the compliance culture. Stop complaining and go do right by our students. Be the teacher we needed when we were in school." Michael Walsh says there are a few things. One, keep the priority around student learning. Two, model and practice integrity in our actions. Three, be impeccable with our words. Say what we mean and mean what we say. Tammy says teachers always have to be committed to always improvement. Yes, we need PD from school, but we also have to take initiative. She commits to putting her students first. If our students are at the center of what we are doing, everyone wins. The impact is great, and the impact is important. So Gretchen Dorn says, share the stories, tell what's taking place in the classroom, show our kids learning and engaged. Kurt Brewer says, just stay positive. I always try to remind myself that the reasons I'm an educator have nothing to do with outside noise. My job is to be the very best for students in my building, and that is what will make lasting impact on them. So again, kind of comes around to blocking out the negativity, staying positive, and I really think sharing that story out, sharing your story as much as possible, which everyone can do if they want to come on the Teach Better Talk podcast. We'll help you share that story out. Just throw that in there, right? Which, by the way, I forgot the episode. Episode 83 was yours, right? 83? I think it was 83. Whatever. Go just do all the 80s, and then you'll find Kathleen. But great episode as well. So, Kathleen, thanks for. I mean, this was a really good one. This was a good chat. Good topic. I think I know I'm getting more. I've been getting notifications the whole time, so I know there's conversations going on. I appreciate you coming on and chatting beforehand, and then chatting with me for a long time here, and your thoughts. And I think it was really engaging. So, any last words, final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with after I mean a great chat that no one's going to sleep from now?
I think I just hope that people actually do it. That they share their stories and they don't just talk about doing it and saying, oh yeah, that'd be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
That they actually, whether it's on social media or with their local news network and saying there's something great going on in our building, or with their friends and family or whoever it may be, just don't just think that it's a good thing to do. Actually do it.
Yes. I love it. And where's your choice of sharing? Is it Twitter? Is Twitter your like that? Is that your go-to, or is it Instagram? Is it
Mostly Twitter. I'm
okay?
trying to be on Instagram more
Yeah,
because that's where all the young people are.
there are some young folks on there.
But I'm mostly on Twitter.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, good. Well, this was an awesome chat. Thank you again. Really, really appreciate it. Appreciate you in general. And all of you watching, commenting, everyone, thank you for, a lot of engagement and conversation going on during this live, which is awesome. So we will see you next week again back here, same time, same place, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And we will definitely be recapping live as well. So until next week, we'll see you. And I guess we'll just catch up with you over on Twitter. Thanks.